is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode. Jesus, Ben.
That wasn't me, you fuckhead.
Which
What
one
was
of you
that?
It
I know it's Ben. Just ruining the show immediately right after we start. So that's great. But welcome back to another episode of Tribaholics. Ben like to ruin the intro, so I'm just gonna go ahead and pass it over to him. How was your weekend, buddy? You having a good time? Are things good?
Yeah, they're all right. Just chilling, watching basketball. Got my jersey on, drinking some water. Hopefully, Akron
What jersey
wins.
is that?
The retro Florida State one.
Oh,
Slightly better than the blue jersey. I almost put on a blue jersey, but I like the retro better.
Or the blue last week. So good call. Good call. You wanna mix it up a bit. Christian, you and I, buddy, we had a fairly fun weekend, man. How was it since you actually were able to make it to the game? And I pulled a nice little freshman move and wasn't able to make it, even though I'm 27 years old.
Yeah, it was a good time. We had fun of a game, but obviously you didn't miss too much, so shouldn't worry about it. But we had a good weekend. I mean, we'll see when you get back into town next time. But Miami weekend's coming up. I'm looking forward to it. Honestly, it's usually been what I look most forward to out of every game in the season. So let's do it.
Yeah, it'll be a fun one. I had a very good weekend. I stayed up till about 6 o'clock in the morning on Friday night. Woke up at probably about 9:30 Saturday
After
morning.
you woke me up.
After I woke Christian up, just drug off my ass coming in. That was a fun time. Because I stayed with Christian. That was a great time on his couch. Woke up, started drinking immediately after that, and it just got blacked out at Madso for approximately 5 hours. So that was a great time. I didn't pay that, dude. Tell him that story, Christian, because that was awesome. Like I didn't have to pay like hardly anything.
Yeah, I mean, apparently Skinner knows every soul who works behind the bar at Madison Social. So, I mean, he kept dabbing up new people, and we kept getting free drinks. And we probably were actually there for 4 or 5 hours before the game. And
all right, well, Christian's taking me to Madison Social when I'm back in town.
Yeah,
Christian Caleb.
I think
that's all Skinner. Yeah, it's all him.
Shout out my boy Gary and shout out my boy Cody. Some of my longtime friends. I've known Gary since I was a freshman in college, and then I've known Cody since I was a junior in college. So like those are my boys. Always known them, always been friends with them. So they hooked it up because that tab, I'm telling y'all boys, that tab was probably pretty fucking.
It would have been bad. It would have been really.
At least you didn't have to watch KZ play football.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I think Christian ended up going to watch it, but I didn't. I didn't watch the replay because it was that bad. So like, you guys are probably gonna have to carry that, which is good because we have a special guest coming on, and that's gonna be Christian's brother Matthew, who is gonna be joining us later for the football portion of the show to talk Miami and Florida State. It's Miami Hate Week. Fuck the U. Use down, whatever you want to do, boys. But excited to have him on. He's a part of Kane Sports. Which is is it an affiliate of 247 or
it's Rivals. He'll explain it all to us when he shows up, but that's Rivals site down there for the U.
Man,
cool.
Yeah, Akron just hit a down 3 with 6 seconds left. They just hit a 3 and 1. And they got a free lead.
Wow, that's nice.
Only ESPN2. Stop watching Michigan State.
Keep us updated. I can't switch over on mine without messing up my Wi-Fi. I'm pretty positive about that. But what is everybody sipping on, guys? If you are in the comment section, let us know what you're sipping on. We ask this at the beginning of every episode, but if you just pop in from time to time, just let us know in the comments what you're sipping on. We're sipping on a bunch of drinks ourselves. Ben's drinking water apparently, and I am drinking a Fire the Cannons Bucks Bud Light. They had a nice deal going on there. Christian had to leave the room for a second, but he's going to be coming back real quick. That's absolutely right, Nick. Can't trust a Miami fan, but we're going to see what he has to say. We're probably one of the better defenses that Miami's going to end up facing up to this point in the year outside of Pitt. So that'll be, a fun little conversation that we're having. But once Christian joins us in a little bit and lets us know what he's sipping on, there he is, right on cue. What are you sipping on,
I just had to go grab these from the fridge naturally. I was on the fence of whether or not I was going to drink them because they stayed in my car for like 2 days after our tailgate Saturday. I'm not going to let the Miami Week show go by without a beer. So
That's a good point. I'll probably get a beer in a second. You ever had Guinness and have you ever had a tequila shot and chased with Guinness? Terrible idea. I got it at the bar once.
Yeah,
almost
Good.
through.
we had a crap ton of Jameson shots chased with Guinness on Saturday, but no, that sounds way worse.
Yeah,
That's
it's
probably
like
what did me in was that Jameson.
We got
Oh.
Nick sipping on Rona here.
no, I think
This guy. Did I miss that before?
Or he's got the Rona, one or the other.
dude, I hate when it's not related to the show.
Shut up, man.
I was
All
gonna
right.
say walking out my door to get beer because my door is off the hinges and two taped together with pizza boxes.
Just one really quick. But quick update for Florida State sports, guys. FSU soccer, the girls team, because we don't have a boys soccer team. We're a men's soccer team. We've got the women though, and they're showing out. They
Real
became
football.
ACC. Yeah, they became ACC champions this past weekend. After they beat number 1 Virginia, which was an awesome game. It was a 1-0 ending with the only goal going to Clara Robbins. Clara's always been a baller, but she has won back-to-back MVPs from that game. So she was the MVP last year. She's the MVP of the ACC this year. That goal, I don't know if you guys saw it, but that goal was
Fucking
absolutely
screamer.
fucking filthy, dude.
Fucking screamer.
Came
out
in
my
from like a
wrist,
mile
man.
away.
Yeah, it only got number 9 on fucking SportsCenter Top 10. I was like, dude, come on. Like, there's not 8 better plays than that.
That's just sexist, honestly.
Title IX investigation to ESPN. Let's go.
That should already have been happened. But we're not here to talk about that. But the Lady Knowles, they're moving on to the NCAA tournament, which is coming up, and they have been named the number 1 overall national seed, so the top seed in the whole entire tournament, and they will be hosting South. Huh?
That's what that means.
Yeah, just explaining to the people who might not know. Fuck you, Ben. But they're gonna be
pretty explanation.
They're gonna be hosting. They're gonna be hosting South Alabama on Friday of this week. I think the game might be at 4 p.m. Or 6 p.m. one or the other there in Tallahassee. So if you're in Tallahassee, make sure you head out there, support the Lady Knowles. They're doing great stuff. That place is always packed anyway. So I think they said first 100 students are free. So if you're a student watching this, be sure to head out there early and get in there and watch your Lady Knowles kick some ass there in the national championship or the NCAA tournament for soccer.
Ohio State just hit a buzzer beater to win. Now I'm sad.
Beautiful. And then we'll keep it going here, and we'll do a little bit more rundown on football before we get into the thick of things of what everything else that we got to talk about, which is basketball coming up tomorrow, the season tip, and then the Miami game later this week. But let's go over some NFL Knowles and what they were able to do this weekend. Let's start it off on the opposite side of the ball because there's only really 2 guys we get to highlight now, with Jameis being injured for the rest of the season. But let's start with Dalvin Cook. Probably his best game of the year, guys. Absolutely went off, had 110 yards on 17 carries, 12 yards on 3 catches with a 6.47 average rush yard, which is his highest of the season. The Vikings did lose, but, Dalvin still had a good game. But I guess perhaps the biggest news with Dalvin was what just dropped right before we came on the show.
Yeah, not great at first. I thought it said he was the one, so I was relieved to see that he was not getting arrested. I was like, well, that's good. I mean, not good, but
Yeah, it was kind of a bizarre thing. It's weird because apparently from what Schefter tweeted, it was an incident like a year ago where someone broke into his home and stole stuff, and there was an altercation. But apparently he knew them, so they call it domestic violence. But we don't really know all the details. But it sucks. Honestly, we're gonna keep him in our prayers and stuff because that's a tough situation for someone to go through, especially in the middle of the season when he's been dealing with injury and really trying to get this thing going and show out the way we expect him to. So it's tough. As far as the game on Saturday, he played well, no doubt. That 60-yard run he had looked pretty vintage Dalvin to me, So that was fun to watch, and hopefully this doesn't derail it and he can keep building that momentum.
Anything from you, Ben?
woke up around 2:30, so I don't have much.
Not really the NFL guy either. But going on to the other running back that was in action there for the Knowles, Devontae Freeman there for the Baltimore Ravens. So we got Dalvin versus Devontae.
In the same game, yeah.
Yeah, which is pretty cool to see. And Devontae had his best game of the season so far this year too, racking up 79 yards on the ground while catching 6 passes and a receiving touchdown. So great stuff for Devontae Freeman in the NFL, kind of getting his legs beneath him, finding a place that is allowing him to just naturally move into that position and not necessarily have to do too much. But it's not that hard when you got a guy like Lamar Jackson. But very happy to see Devontae Freeman get back, not only in the scoring column, but he seems like he's being a big part of that team, especially now as the sole starter there for the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, it's exciting, dude. I mean, obviously I've mentioned I'm torn on it because I hate the Ravens, but still exciting to see. I mean, and if it's funny because, we have Jordan Travis and Trayshawn Ward now and could draw the similarities, with Lamar Jackson and D. Free. So people have already been making the Ward and Freeman similarities all season. So why not take that next step with Jordan Travis?
Yeah, it'd be pretty dope. And, we're not going to hear from Ben very much right now. He's not an NFL guy, and he's locked into some basketball. But, Ben, you better get back in here in just quite a second. Going to get beer, BRB. All right, go get your beer and then come back. That was Ben just letting us know what he was doing. And it's probably a good moment for him to skip out because he's not paying attention to NFL at all, apparently. But Jalen Ramsey, let's talk about the big boy over there for the Los Angeles Rams. Had another great game when he was covering A.J. Brown. Things got a little chippy, words were said, but Jalen did end up with a nice interception, for the game, and then 3 solo tackles and a tackle for loss to go along with that interception. So another great game there for, Jalen Ramsey for the Rams against a very good Tennessee Titans squad that we all see them put in, every week. And they came up with a win ultimately, but good stuff for Jalen, seeing him play well as always.
Yeah, dude. I think this is the only NFL null that we've talked about every single week so far, just on this segment. I'm pretty sure now he's up to 4 games in a row with a turnover too. I mean, he just doesn't freaking stop. And I mean, you could say what you want about Matt Stafford. They couldn't get that offense going against Tennessee, but Jalen held it down and he did his job, no doubt.
Here's the thing, he's going to do his job every week. Like you said, It's probably the 4th, 5th week in a row he's had some type of impact when it comes to turnovers and getting his team the football back. So he's doing what he can. I still will die on the hill that he's the best corner in the NFL. I don't care what anybody has to say. Best, maybe not corner, but best DB. There you go, because he plays a little star position where he can just kind of roam all over the field and blitz when he has to and does whatever. He kind of makes his own play calls whenever he's out there. So good for him. He's great at it, and just continue to ball out, Jalen. But moving on, and this isn't necessarily something that, a player that had a huge game. He did end the game with 1 sack, a quarterback hit, and a tackle for loss, and a forced fumble, and 5 total tackles overall. So a pretty decent game. But I think the biggest storyline coming out of this game for Brian Burns is the thing that happened with the quarterback Mac Jones of the New England Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, do you guys think it was dirty or what?
Fuck Mac Jones.
Do you think that was intentional, trying to injure him?
He said he was dazed and thought he had the ball. Yeah, fuck Mac Jones. Kneecap him next game.
Yeah,
I don't care if you even think he has the ball.
You don't twist.
You don't twist, and that's what everybody saw. Is we saw him twist. We didn't even see him just pull. You could just pull and you'd be fine, but you twisted the ankle. That's a dirty play, in my opinion. I think he should have gotten a fine or something for what it's worth. But it's probably not going to happen. Nobody's going to come down on it. But all over Twitter, that was the talk of a lot about what in the NFL was going on was. Brian Burns getting his ankle turned by Mac Jones.
Yeah, the only people that I saw defending it was one of my Alabama friends. Most were rational, and then Patriots fans. So,
Which makes a whole lot of fucking sense to me.
All
right, and then our last player here, guys. It's not going to be any of the guys on the defensive side of the ball for the Chargers, but it's going to be the guy that hit the game winner for the Chargers, and Dustin Hopkins, who was released a
let's
couple
go.
weeks ago from the Washington football team, and comes out and drills a game-winning field goal for the Chargers. Super happy for Dustin. I love how Derwin was just hyping him up. Just loved it. He was talking about the before game and everything. He loves Dustin and having an old kicker there. He was so pumped about it. Asante Samuel didn't play. Derwin didn't have a great game by any means, and I don't know. He maybe have not needed to, but if he did, it probably would have changed the game. Instead of it being as close as it was to it not being as close. But huge kick for Dustin Hopkins, proving Washington football team made the wrong decision going with Blewett instead of himself and a veteran quick kicker.
Yeah, I was confused when I saw him on the I was like, why'd they release him? He was playing fine. And then I saw the Chargers hosted him and was like, it's about to go down. We're gonna have a kicker.
Yeah, it took me a second too, because obviously I knew he got released a few weeks ago. We talked about that, but I did not hear that he got picked up by the Chargers. So when I saw him out there towards the end of the game, because I had Red Zone on, so I was kind of watching different games, and I didn't even realize he was in it till he attempted that game winner. This is exciting stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was
5-3, making a playoff push. Best team in LA. Fuck you, Luke.
I don't know if that's the case, but it's good for whatever reason. Good for Dustin. Latching on to a team that's good, latching on to a team that wants him to be there and is not going to really fault him for little misses here and there, but he comes through in clutch. So, which is what Dustin Hopkins has been known for. So that's what he's supposed to be. That's what he's doing. And congratulations to him for being able to do that and prove Washington wrong. But with that being said, Ben, your favorite part, other than the end of the show, is we're about to start talking about basketball. We've got tip tomorrow. We got tip of the season at 9 p.m. against Penn at home, where we carry a 77-4 record since 2015, which is absolutely fucking incredible in my opinion. Just looking at those numbers, I can't even believe it.
It's insane.
But it's an actual thing, and this is going to be the first game Penn has played since COVID came down. They did not play at all last season because of COVID. The Ivy League didn't play as a whole. So this is going to be Penn's first game, but they bring back a lot of veterans. So, Ben, start us off with that. What are you seeing from that? And then I've got a little blurb from one of my buddies who is closely related with the Penn team up north. So I'll give you a little bit of his rundown after you kind of lay out what we're looking at here tomorrow night in terms of starters. Who are we looking at starting? Who are we looking at getting playing time? Anything and everything there, Ben. Start us off, baby.
All right, well, first game Tuck's going to be sold out in over a year, I guess. Almost probably 2 years since we didn't have full capacity last year. So that'll be fun. I wish Scotty got to have that environment. Don't really know who the starting five is going to be. I know Mills will be in there. Polite will be in there. Malik will be in there. Ngom will probably be in there. So I think, I don't know, it may be Evans and Mills, get a little peanut butter and jelly, as someone called it in the Discord. I really liked it. So that sounds good. I'd be okay with that. I'd be a little concerned with who we have as our guard coming out. I mean, I guess you just rotate Warley or Evans and Warley and Mills and then have one of them always on the court at one time. I want Cleveland to get a lot of minutes. I did, on my Twitter, I did a whole rundown of who's going to get, the first dunk, first assist, first block. I'm ready. It's going to be good. I'm a little nervous for Penn because I saw what they did to Alabama in 2019 on their opener. They're just kind of they're not a super talented team, but they're well coached and they're well disciplined, and they can shoot. We usually struggle with teams that can shoot if they get hot because for some reason some kid from the bench is going to drop 9 for 9 from 3 and just go for 27 points, and it's going to piss me off.
Yeah, and I'll read what my buddy sent out. My buddy, his name's Ben Hoyt. He lives up in Pennsylvania, very close to the Penn area, and keeps up with them very often. This is something that he sent me through a text. He said, Penn has a lot of depth at the guard position and guys who can really shoot. Shooting is no doubt our strength with guys like Jonah Charles, Max Martz, and a really good freshman in Clark Swatcher who can hit it from anywhere. And really athletic guys like Jordan Dingle and big man Max Lorca-Lloyd. It'll be interesting because it'll be our first game in a couple years, but we definitely keep up with FSU and potentially win if we ball out. He put if we ball out, that's a big statement to me. They have to ball out to even be able to hang in there with Florida State and potentially win. And he also went on to say the last ACC team and Power 5 teams that they played, they ended up winning. So that's kind of where that cause of concern comes in a little bit. Guys not necessarily knowing their roles here for the Noles. Well, they should know their roles, but are they gelled to that point to where they're going to be confident coming into the first game of the year to go against the team that has some veteran guys as well as some new guys as well. And then I'm kind of looking at, their roster and some of those guys. A lot of those guys that he had mentioned in their average anywhere from like 20 minutes to like 35 minutes. So these guys have gotten great playing time. They do have some shooters after looking at their roster and what they were able to produce 2 years ago. So it's about getting the ball in those guys' hands. I mean, that Max Martz forward that he was talking about shot 43% from three-point range 2 years ago. So it'll be very interesting, but I think ultimately the length and athleticism of Florida State should win. But I think it'll probably be closer than the 19 and a half point spread that we are seeing now.
Yeah, I was going to have – you kind of trying to look up the other dude. Yeah, I was going to have pin covering on one of my scared money don't make money just because I see a back door or a late pull away. Like, it's always hard to predict the spreads, but usually you go against a big spread in the first opening game. You don't know who's going to be good, who's going to be bad, who's going to underperform, who's going to overperform. I was looking at the roster at the guys he said, and 6'1", 6'3", 6'1", 6'9". So, like, we definitely have a size advantage on their guys that he mentioned that are star players. And so I'm not really too concerned. I think we should bully them in the paint as long as we get in the paint. Malik's going to have a big game. Ngam, if he's improved, should have a big game. We're just bigger or physical and more athletic. I'm not too worried. I'm just really worried if we can't guard the three or we keep giving them opening looks and turning the ball over because we've had turnover issues every couple of games against some small teams we shouldn't have.
Right, and I think that's kind of how it's kind of been presented to us as fans, the past few years or so when we do have play a team that's a mid-major, or just not a team that should be able to hang with us, and they end up hanging with us for pretty much the whole game, and then maybe we pull away in the last 2 minutes or like just it's, very close until the end. And that's something we've seen is that we've not been able to, control that onslaught of just shots going up. And hopefully that's something we can control, this time around. We've got a lot of guys on the perimeter that can stretch the floor, defensively stretch the floor. So that's great. Force guys to pass the ball. That's what you want to get the ball moving, get the ball into passing lanes so that you can be able to steal it and run. So I think that'll bode well for us with all those guys being short. We just can't let them knock down those jumpers, because if they start knocking down jumpers, they start knocking down three-pointers, that will cause a serious problem for us because we want to get up and down. We want to play defense, and that's how we like to play the game. So that's my only worry for tomorrow's game. We'll see how it goes. Do you want to give score predictions real quick on that game?
Yeah, I think it's at home. I know. It really depends. I could see it being anywhere from like a 69 to like 63 type game, or I could see us winning like 81 to like 65. I'll go 80. I'll go 79. I'll go 77, 65. Just come back towards the end. I think we're gonna, if we play like I expect us to play, I think we should be in control of the game for the most part, and then we'll put in the classless Caucasians for a little bit, maybe, hopefully. And they'll have some guys come in, knock down a couple of threes, make it look closer than it really was. Hopefully it's not the opposite where it's close all game and we pull away late and make it look not as close as it really was.
Right. For me, I think it's going to be right around there too. I think it'll probably be a 15-point win. I've got 82-67. That's right where I like it at. I think we're able to put up points. I think it'll be closer than we imagined, but we pull away late at the end, like I mentioned before. I think this group is much more solid than a lot of people think. You added a lot of pieces that are going to be very complementary to each other, and that's something that we're going to be looking forward to. As long as they mesh well and are meshing early on in the season, it shouldn't be a problem at all. Anything for you, Christian?
Yeah, I mean, I like to think we're going to cover in a game like this, but you never know what can happen, especially you're starting the year and, you could come out rocky, but I'd pick us to cover. I think we're scoring in the low 80s. Penn, I really wouldn't want to see them get much past like 60, 65. So we'll see how it goes. I haven't decided if I'm going to go to the game or not yet. I'm kind of leaning towards it, but we'll see how it goes.
You show up and you pack the tub. You live there. You live the game.
Yeah, baby. It's a sold out student section. At least be, a good casual fan and show up to your seats. That's all we can ask, okay? Go have a couple beers, enjoy yourself. You don't have to be all extravagant.
Yeah, it's hard to say no to that.
Shout out to my current university beating Morehead State 20-4. 10 minutes
There
in
you go.
the first half. So that's nice.
Nice. But the game that we play on Sunday, because we have 2 games this week, is going to be at UF. It's our second game of the season. UF is actually playing right now, so if you guys are watching us, be sure to just check the score on that. Florida's only up 5, about midway through the first half against an Elon team who is not very good, I would imagine, considering what Florida should have talent-wise, and they should be able to smack the floor with them. But keep an eye on that. We'll see what happens. A lot of new players there for the University of Florida, so keep an eye on that. So that way, after our game tomorrow, you can kind of match us up against each other, see where we're at, see what kind of matchups we're going to see with starters and everything like that. But I expect a win there as well, though not necessarily ready to give score predictions because I want to see how both of our games play out.
Yeah.
Anything from you, Ben?
Yeah, I don't know what the spread is for the Florida game, but if you've noticed a trend the past couple of years, take us in the points. Just I don't know what it is yet. They don't have a line yet. Just take us in the points. I'm nervous, but at the same time, I'm not. Wednesday is going to show a lot for me. Like if we look good, I would take the alternate spread by like 15 if we look good and they look bad. So I'm a homer. That's why I lose money in betting. But that's okay. I have fun doing it.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I think it'll be a good game as always. It's always fun to watch us play Florida, especially when we beat them. And we beat them, I can't even tell you how many times in a row. Thank you, Mike White, for being Leonard Hamilton's child. 6 times. There we go. Ben with the facts. But with that being said, we'll move on to the big part of our show, and that's going to be our football talk, guys. Yeah, I know you're going to say it. I know you're going to say it, Ben. You love basketball. Once we get deeper in the basketball season, then it'll become a bigger show because then we'll actually have some shit to talk about when it comes to basketball instead of just predicting what's going to happen. So with that being said, let's welcome in Christian's brother and Kane Sport contributor, I guess is probably my best way to put it. Matthew Suero. Welcome, brother. We appreciate you coming on, putting Scum in his own thing. I love it, dude. Coming on a Florida State show, a Miami guy putting Scum as his name.
Look, we got some Russian hackers apparently messing with the names, but it's all right. It's all good. I did have a question about this show. I don't have a whole lot of experience. The one clip I did see was, of Christian in a pretty unflattering position. Is my camera good, or should I get like a good nostril shot for you guys?
Oh, I love it. I think that was I think somebody had mentioned that at one point.
Yeah,
it was like one of our first episodes.
That was probably Matthew's burner account calling me out.
It was like one of our first episodes. Somebody commented. I don't even know where they commented. It was on Facebook.
It was definitely Facebook. They were like,
yeah,
nice.
They were like,
we're all the best comments
in the up the nostril camera shot. I'm never watching again. Like, dude, come on. Okay, then don't watch us. You already watched us. You already gave us a click and a view. So do we really care? No.
Now I put my laptop up on all my stack of text messages.
Yeah, but absolutely, Christian. I'll let you take it away. Actually, Matthew. Actually, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself before Christian takes it over? Let everybody know who you are, what you do.
Yeah, my name is Matthew Suero. I'm Christian's younger brother. I cover recruiting, Miami Hurricanes recruiting for Kane Sport. Go to all the high school games, cover the commits, track their stats, all that stuff. That's basically it. So I got a lot of experience, with the guys in the current class. I've been doing this for a different website for a few years now. So I've really followed most of the guys that are in college right now from South Florida since they were in high school. So, it's just been cool to see that. That's really it. Thanks, Nick.
What's that?
I said thanks, Nick, for that comment.
Yep. All right, guys. So, obviously, we've got him on here because we're getting into the FSU Miami rivalry game this weekend. Before we jump into the specifics of that, Matthew, I don't know, if our fans really keep up with the U, at least not, on a close basis until this weekend comes around. So why don't you give us a rundown of how the season's going, dude? One thing I do know from watching Far Away, the first thing I want you to talk about is there was initially a lot of turmoil with Manny Diaz. You had former players and his athletic director and all that calling him out. What's the situation there? Is this a game where he's still on the hot seat? Is this a game like Florida State could beat him out of his job? What's going on?
Yeah, the seat is definitely still hot, despite the 3-game winning streak. It really started that whole fiasco as Miami starts the year 2-4. They don't have any Power 5 wins. Their only win was against an FCS team in Appalachian State. So a really rough start after super high expectations internally coming into the year. And then before the NC State game, a game where Miami was an underdog and State coming in, they were hot. They were ranked top 25 in the country. The athletic director the day before the game, he does an interview with only a select group of media, some local newspaper media, who he knows aren't really going to grill him on some tough questions. And he basically sets up the platform to fire Manny Diaz should Miami lose that game. Miami doesn't, and now they've won 3 straight, and the athletic director's, sitting out, alone on an island, kind of looking like an idiot. And now there was some more turmoil, if you want to add to the fire, from the press conference yesterday where Manny Diaz was asked, do you think that, your athletic director's comments from a few weeks ago are hurting the team in recruiting because other teams can negatively recruit? Hey, the administration doesn't even trust him. He's not going to be there for long. And he said, yes, he does think that those comments make an impact. So there's a lot of tension between those two. It's hard to see them both being back next year. Something's got to give there.
Yeah, and that's a major storyline I know about this season off the field, but on the field, it's been the slow start, and their new quarterback, Van Dyke, coming on strong in the last few games. What's the deal with him? Is that Miami's QB of the future? Is Garcia not the guy? Is King moving on? What's going on there at a broader view?
Well, King said in an interview last week that he's moving on, so you don't have to worry about him coming back, even though he could have applied for a medical red shirt. What's crazy is you almost have to question maybe a little bit of the internal scouting on their own team from the coaching staff because, Tyler Van Dyke was really third on this depth chart. The people thought that Jake Garcia was the better quarterback, but against Central Connecticut, the FCS team, when him and Van Dyke were splitting snaps, he broke his ankle, and then the other quarterback left was Tyler Van Dyke. He, by default, became the starter, and he's really blossomed since then. But, maybe does that mean that they just didn't scout their own team well, or does that mean that Garcia is actually, just as good? Who knows? We haven't seen him in a real game.
Interesting. Yeah, that's been kind of fun to watch. Skinner and Ben, do you have anything for him before we jump into the specifics of this weekend's game?
I guess I'm just mostly interested in, with all the transfers that we're in the attrition that we are seeing with you guys right now. Is that something that, I guess we're kind of used to it from Florida State perspective because we just always, drag on you guys for, having the notepad commits or the transfers or anything like that. But it just feels like there's a lot more this season than there has been in the past. Is that just to do with the speculation of Diaz? Is that just something that Diaz isn't being able to, get along with the guys in the locker room? Or is there something outside of that we might not see as a whole?
Really what it is after non-conference play and really starting with the FCS game, there was a lot of pressure from the fan base to play the younger guys, and the coaching staff really essentially they gave into the pressure after the 1-2 start. There was a big youth movement, and a lot of the older guys just got pushed out. Their role was reduced. They're not playing anymore, and they're like, I'm not just going to sit here behind these, first and second year guys for no reason. I'm going to go find a new school. So it's what you've seen happen with whether it was the receivers, the safety, and the linebacker this week. It's as guys get phased out and the younger guys come in, they're just jumping in the transfer portal.
Yeah, I guess my only question that I can think of right now is I'm probably jumping the gun a little bit, but if Diaz were to be let go at the end of the season, do you have any names that you would like to reach out to or know that there's interest from? I'd like to know what I'm going up
I
against.
mean, like
He has some
That's a great
ridiculous names
question,
on
I
his
think.
board.
the
That's why I laugh.
the you know golden not Al Golden, excuse me, but the shining star of Miami's big board would definitely be Mario Cristobal. He has these alum. He has the Miami connection. He still has family down here. He's a Cuban guy. Obviously, great recruiter. Oregon's in the top 4 right now. He would be number 1 at the top of the board for sure. There are some people that know him from his Columbus days. Miami is a very connected community, and there are some people that know him and went to school with him, have a connection with him, grew up with him, that, they have some money and they think that they can get some things done should it come to that. They think that they can convince him. The biggest thing is although like they haven't spent it, the money isn't the issue. There are people willing to put up the money. The other issue is as going back to the athletic director, as far as Blake James, he is not a very popular athletic director in the coaching community. He's not someone that people want to work for. If you guys, I don't know, this might be something you're not following because you're not really following Miami closely, but there was this, long dragged out lawsuit between Miami and Al Golden because they didn't pay him his full buyout, and Blake James has a reputation of being someone who doesn't pay coaches a full buyout. And, what he did with Manny Diaz basically, separated himself from him, stabbing him in the back a little bit. He's not a very attractive boss for coaches. So if you want to get a good coach, like Blake James is not the guy to bring in a big time coach. That you'd have to make the change there first before you bring in a coach.
Yeah, Cristobal is the one name that scares me. He can be anybody else but Cristobal. That's the one guy I don't want in Miami.
Yeah, that's fair, Ben. I also think it's probably the least realistic. Also, at this point, though, I feel like Manny, unless FSU upsets them, maybe, but I feel like Manny has done a good job to save himself by the little win streak he's gotten here. But that does kind of lead us into this weekend's matchup to kind of zone in on why we're all here, what we're all excited for now. So to set the scene here, let's look at this. We've got Miami coming into Doak at 3:30 on Saturday afternoon. Last I've seen, Miami's favored by 2.5 here, and we've got the total at 61. A little look at the rivalry. FSU leads the series 10-7 since 2004, which is notable because that's the year Miami joined the ACC. In that time, Florida State has won national championship, 4 ACC championships, and 5 Atlantic Division crowns. Miami looks like they have 1 Coastal Division championship in that time and no ACC championships. So this year, though, after a 2-4 start, Miami bounced back, like Matthew told us. They're sitting at 5-4 now, 3-2 in the ACC. As far as the series recently, Miami's got 4 straight over FSU, which is still overshadowed by the previous 7 straight won by Florida State. We're looking at Mike Norvell's first rivalry game as a coach at FSU. And let's dig into this thing. I mean, where should we start? Do you guys want to start with the FSU offense's matchup versus the Miami defense, or the other way around?
I just want to start and say that this offense is going to look completely different against Miami now that Jordan Travis has been a full participant at practice as of today than it did last weekend when we faced NC State. It was a good team, probably better than a good team, and we only lost by 14 points, but we could have easily probably won that game if Jordan Travis was heading the offense. So I think him coming in is just going to have a huge impact on the offense as a whole, and then just kind of make this game supposed to be what this game's supposed to be.
Well, yeah, well, I definitely agree, and let's get right into it there then with the FSU offense. Obviously, like Skinner said, and like we know, 2 disappointing games in a row with the Clemson game, then the NC State game. The Clemson game probably less disappointing than it looks, but I mean, you look at both of those defenses. Clemson at the time we played had the number 3 defense in the country. NC State last week had the number 17 defense in the country. Miami rolls into Doak this weekend with the number 22 defense in the country. So that's not exactly the level that Clemson and NC State were at, but still pretty good. So Matthew, I mean, before we really get into the weeds of it, what's like your quick overview of what Miami's defense is, what their strengths and weaknesses are, and what do you know about our offense?
So the way I look at your offense with Jordan Travis, at least, which is what I think is
And
going to happen.
we're gonna do this preview assuming it's like Jordan Travis
Got it.
starting, because
If it's not, I'm not
there's
watching.
no reason for a preview if he's not playing anyways. There's no reason to even line him up. So let's go with that.
So with Jordan Travis, the way I see it is you almost have to treat it like a triple option offense when you're
Triple
playing
option.
defense against it. You
You
know,
had to say, oh my God, I'm so sorry about the interruption. Ben has been on this triple option thing for, it's going on like 4 or 5 weeks now.
Dude,
Ben just wants to run the triple option.
He's so
I
much
don't
fun to
think
watch.
it's the worst idea. Like, you're not
Thank
just
you.
going to sit back and drop and pass with Jordan Travis. That doesn't make any sense. It's almost like when Georgia Tech ran it. It's like you just have to play the run every play and then be wary for, like, a pass is almost like a trick play where they're just going to try to check it deep because they can't consistently pass the ball and they can't pass block either. That's something I saw from watching the game last week. Yeah, I think you have to look at it as a team that's just going to run the ball most of the time. You have to play the run. The biggest issue with Miami early in the season, which has during this winning streak, is it's certainly gotten better, but it's still not good. Is they've had some serious tackling issues. I think they gave up 30 some odd missed tackles against Michigan State, like just ridiculous numbers. So I think that is certainly something to watch because Miami's middle linebacker, whoever it is, whether it's Corey Flagg or Ryan Rigoni, it's not the most athletic guys in the world. So I'd say they're usually not in great position, especially against a guy like Jordan Travis, who's definitely going to be the more athletic guy in that matchup. And Miami is playing with 2 true freshman safeties starting, and you saw last week give some explosive plays against Georgia Tech. So they're watching some eye candy in the backfield. I think there are some things that Florida State can do to create explosive plays. It's something Mike Norvell's been good at. Really all year. You saw the one he drew up, or I don't know if he drew it up, but they had a big explosive play against Notre Dame. I don't remember exactly how it happened, but that's something that really plagued Miami last week. This is a crazy stat. Last week against Georgia Tech, Miami gave up 135 rushing yards on 32 carries, and on just 4 carries, Georgia Tech had 136 yards. So on the other 28, Miami held them to -1 yards. Crazy, but it was the explosive plays that just killed them. They had 3 explosive rushing touchdowns, and that was really what hurt them the most.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we'll get to the other side of the ball, but I feel like both of these offenses are pretty reliant on explosive plays right now. For us, it's the run, and for Miami, it's more so the pass, from what I can tell. But a little more on Jordan Travis. I wrote some stuff down here because I had a feeling, Matthew, you were going to bring up his resume as a passer. And I mean, it's not great. He's not Jameis, right? But I mean, I think he is a little underrated. And I think as far as calling it, a triple option offense, you're off there because I think we are more effective through the air than you would immediately consider. So if you look at Florida State's passer rating this season, when Travis is in, it's 139.8. When it's Milton, Chuba, Tate, anyone else, it's 101.3. With Travis, we've got 7.91 yards per attempt without 5.2. We've got yards per completion with Travis at 13.37, without him at 9.29. And our touchdown percentage with Travis is 7.1 without 4.3. So, I mean, I feel like he's more well-rounded and he gets more well-rounded every game. Now, it's not to say Florida State's going to come out and throw the ball 30, 40 times in this game. We're probably going to throw it 20 or less times, but I think they're very careful about what throws they do pick, when they pick them situationally, and that's why Travis has been more successful in those situations. So
I think he's a very smart quarterback.
Yeah.
And not necessarily quarterback, but
and that's true, Skinner, because like also in the way that both him and the staff are smart by knowing what he can and cannot do and not trying to push it too much,
They don't force him to make plays that he cannot make or doesn't feel comfortable making. So they're going to put him in the best position to win. And Travis is probably best when a play breaks down in the passing game. If a play breaks down in the passing game, he does keep his eye downfield to an extent, but he knows when to take off and when to run. And that's something that I have seen in his maturity and his growth, especially this season, because early on in the year, we were seeing him throw balls away straight into a defender's hands instead of throwing them out of bounds, or instead of just getting 2 yards when he can, or just taking the sack. He's become a lot smarter with the ball. And I think the biggest thing that worries me from what, Matthew had said is that Miami has been very bad at tackling. So that worries me for Miami is specifically early on in the season, because Travis has shown all season that he is slippery. He can get out of any tackle when he's in back there past the ball. He can just slip through a tackle against some of the best defenders too in the ACC. So it's really, a weakness versus a strength on one side, but at the same time, are our skill players on the offensive side of the ball going to be able to provide what Travis needs to be successful against in a rivalry game against Miami?
And I agree, and I bring up his passing efficiency compared to our other quarterbacks, not to say that we're going to be just chucking the ball around the field, but to say it's definitely something to look out for in this game, especially with Miami's troubles underneath. I think your safeties are good, Matthew, but I mean, you even pointed out to me the trouble with the linebackers. So that'll be interesting to watch. And I mean, still keeping it on those linebackers and keeping it in the middle of the field there. I mean, our bread and butter is obviously going to be the running game. There's no two ways about it. That's what it is. So we've got Miami coming into this one, giving up 135 rushing yards a game. FSU runs for 190 rushing yards a game. So, I mean, it's an interesting matchup there. I mean, what's the deal with those linebackers, dude? Are they just young? Is it just them? Is it the D-line that concerns you too? I mean, what's exactly does it look like for a team who wants to run against Miami?
Well, the defensive line is much better against the run this year than they were last year. Brian brought back a defensive line coach that went to the NFL for a few years, and he's really helped them out in terms of setting the edge and run fits and all that. The biggest issue with linebacker is just that was Manny's position. This is one of the biggest critiques of Manny's. That was his position to recruit when he was defensive coordinator. He was a linebackers coach. And just they haven't brought in talented guys, really. The guy that they brought in who started, who was in the class of 2020, is Corey Flagg. He was a 3-star from Texas, undersized guy, not the most athletic, and he's your starter right now. And it's just you haven't brought in a whole lot of talent at that position. That's the biggest issue. And behind him right now, you have a walk-on because the true freshman that you have, they don't feel like he's ready to play yet. So just not a whole lot. So
he's healthy, but he's still behind the walk-on?
The true freshman, yeah.
Who is that?
The true freshman is Deshaun Chapman. The walk-on is Ryan Rigoni,
Gotcha.
who is not bad. He's not athletic enough to, stick with Travis, but he at least is in the right position most of the time when he's on the field.
Okay. And similar note, and I kind of touched on this earlier, Matthew, and I don't have the numbers on this, but it's something I've seen talked about a lot this week as we, get closer to the game, is that Miami gives up big runs more than anything, runs of 20-plus yards, explosive plays, teams scoring on long runs. Is that just a symptom of the linebackers? Is that even, true, that narrative that's going around?
It's definitely true. You saw it really plague them against Michigan State and what Kenneth Walker did to them. And then Georgia Tech had a whole lot of success doing that too. North Carolina had a lot of success. It's the linebackers. They're not we play with 2 traditional linebackers and then a striker. I think you guys call it the star position, which is that hybrid. Our weak side linebacker
it's like a Fox for us. The star was under Taggart.
All right, my bad. Sorry to bring up bad memories.
It's the same. It's the same thing though.
Whatever anybody wants to call it, it's all the same position. But it's really the weak side linebacker play for Miami hasn't been bad. They got 2 guys there that are playing pretty well and are pretty athletic guys. But it's just people are targeting the middle linebacker and putting them at the point of attack a lot and having a lot of success doing it. And then last week, what really got us is the safeties were out of position a lot too. Georgia Tech schemed up some good things to really put some pressure on the true freshman. Some things I hadn't seen. They ran out some unique looking formations that it really hadn't shown a lot on film. So I'm sure Florida State would try to throw some of those same, unique looks at the freshman safeties as well. Because it's not a talent issue with those guys. It's just they haven't played a whole lot.
That's interesting. And the last thing I'll say before I throw it to anyone else who wants to comment on our defense versus our offense rather versus Miami's defense. I think we can take advantage of all that stuff, but if we don't go out there with Dylan Gibbons and Bavion Johnson, right? If we're throwing Love Taylor out there, if we're throwing Brady Scott out there and whoever else, I feel like this whole conversation is for naught. I feel like we need our starters on the O-line. If they're there, I expect them to play at an above average level to really hold these guys up and to make room for us to run on Miami. If they're not there, I mean, it's such a big drop off. I feel like, Miami's past history with giving up runs won't even matter because our backup O-line is so bad. So I'll just
let me ask you, why would those guys not play? Is there an injury question with the starters right now? Or
So Gibbons, our guard, who was a transfer from Notre Dame, has been in and out for the last 4 weeks. And when he's been in, like against Clemson, he was in. Against NC State, he wasn't. When he's been in, he's been playing like injured, which, I mean, only goes to prove my point about how much worse the backups are, that they'd rather have him in there at seriously, 70% maybe or less. So it's an issue for us. He did get the week off. I don't know that he got the week off, but he was out last week. So hopefully that was time for him to get healthy and get back into the flow of it. And Bavion was out last week. I believe he was dealing with a bug going around because I haven't heard about any actual.
Well, the flu really struck down a lot of people.
Yeah.
So the obvious one that everybody really cared about was Travis. So you didn't really hear a lot about the other guys.
But there was definitely other guys. So.
But let me ask you about number 52 because is he someone who's going to start? Because I saw him get abused a few times against NC State. Is he a starter? 52 left tackle.
That's Robert Scott. Yeah, he'll be out there.
He looked pretty rough.
He's a redshirt freshman, his first season starting. I think he's got a lot of promise. He's a good ass player, but I mean sometimes you have those freshman moments. And especially when you're losing the guard next to him, like the senior graduate transfer who's kind of been that steadying force, it's not surprising to see the younger guy have a bad game. So definitely need to bounce back.
I 100% agree on that. Robert Scott, when he's got his guys next to him, looks like a totally different player than when he doesn't have his normal guys next to him. He doesn't have that leadership to where, he's super young still, and that's fine. And he has time to grow and develop into the type of player that he could possibly be because he's got that, upside. He's got that ceiling to him. He's just going to have to learn that he's going to have to become that guy instead of relying on those guys.
Yeah.
So, for him, it's learning curves whenever those guys aren't there for him. Yeah, he's going to get abused from, on occasion. That's what's going to happen. But for whenever they're together as a whole starting unit that we started the year with, they're not, the greatest, but they're enough to get the job done. And that's all, us Florida State fans have been asking for the past 3 years.
Exactly.
So that's been
we've been dying to get to average, and I think that's where we are when we have our starting guys, obviously not when they're out. And Matthew, you'll get a kick out of this. His backup is Lloyd Willis, who I know is your guy. So
love Lloyd Willis.
We need him to show up. Does anyone have anything before we switch sides of the ball here and try to preview the other matchup?
I just want to use the middle of the field, make their linebackers drop into coverage, but I don't trust our wide receivers to do enough. They stink.
What's your tight end situation?
You know what? I mean, I think Cam is going to be in the game, and he's our main receiving tight end.
He didn't look bad on that defense.
Yeah, he's especially since the Clemson game when Cam went down, Jordan Wilson has been catching a lot more than I thought he could. So he's been kind of our –
that's the transfer from UCLA who was out.
The
transfer from UCLA, he was out all last year with an injury. And so he was finally getting back into the flow of things, and he was used mainly as a blocking tight end. But when Cam went down, he did produce in the passing game, which is huge because we know Norvell, we know our offense likes to utilize the tight ends in the passing game.
Love it.
But that's pretty obvious, and, us Florida State fans, we love it. Because it just opens up the field that much more. So Whether Cam's ready to go or not, I expect him to be. He's listed on the depth chart as starting, so I don't expect anything different from him being out. But Cam is probably more lethal than Jordan down the middle of the field, just because Cam can create that separation from a linebacker, or even he can use his body up against a corner who's covering him. So that's something that is probably going to be one of the glaring aspects. So I'm glad Ben actually pointed that out, especially when you were pointing at the linebackers being probably the weakness of that Miami defense.
Yeah, I agree. We need the tight ends. I mean, if both of them could catch a few balls, that would be awesome, because I still think our leading receiver is Keyshawn, and I mean, he doesn't really do much. So moving on, though, to the Florida State defense versus Miami offense here on that happy note. All right, so coming into this one, Miami's obviously been much improved on offense since they've brought in their young quarterback, Van Dyke. It looks like their first 4 games, their average points per game was at 27.5. On this 3-game winning streak they've been on, they're up to 34 points per game. That's a pretty notable improvement. I mean, it's not bad. FSU allows 27 points per game on the season. Miami on offense, they've got the most 20-plus yard plays of anyone in the country. I know a lot of what they do with Van Dyke is just chuck bombs to Rambo. So, Matthew, give us just a little bit of overview as a general look at the Miami offense.
Yeah, and like you guys were sticking with just, the Jordan Travis offense, I'm going to stick with what we've seen the last 5 games. I'll throw in those 2 losses that Van Dyke started too, because that really is when offense started to turn. Like you said, they want to push the ball downfield. They really like the speed that they have on the outside with Charleston Rambo and Keyshawn Smith. I think those 2 guys are really good, and they can stretch the field. And Van Dyke can push the ball downfield in a way that King just couldn't. And that's really opened up a lot of things. You've seen, the tight ends start to get more involved now too, as, the middle of the field is open more. You've seen the running game get better. It's all connected, obviously. With the safeties, you can't stick 2 safeties in the box or 1 safety in the box and just leave 1 high every play. Then obviously you're going to run the ball better. And then I think obviously everybody looks at Tyler Van Dyke. Our starting center went down, right around the start of ACC, played 2, Corey Gaynor, and he was replaced by a 3rd-year guy from Georgia in Ja'Kai Clark, who has really, since he's come in, the offensive line has taken a huge step forward. Van Dyke has had a whole lot of time to throw, and they've played some good defensive lines too. Pitt has they've got some NFL guys on the interior of their defensive line.
That's what they're known for.
Yeah, and they kept Tyler upright that game. They played well since that switch has been made. They've actually lost 2 of the starters from week 1 to season-ending injuries, but, somehow they're still playing their best football right now, at least in pass blocking. Run blocking it's a lot more of scheming up runs than guys just mauling guys up front. But I think that, that is something that we can't overlook. It's just, they've given him the time to push the ball downfield, which that's become the bread and butter of this offense.
Yeah, dude, it's interesting you bring that up. And I mean, there's a couple things you brought up there that I want to touch on, but I do want to jump to what you talked about with Miami getting their center back and Miami, offense really turning up because they've been giving the quarterback time. I think on either side of the ball, that's my biggest key to this game is if we're going to be able to get after that quarterback. I do think we will. I know Pittsburgh always has a pretty damn good defensive line, but I mean, I look at our defensive line, I see, guaranteed 3, potentially 4 guys playing there, in this game who are going to play in the NFL. 3 of them I expect to get drafted after this season. 1 is on the inside there and Lovett, and then our 2 guys or women, we have Jermaine on the outside. Obviously, Coop also with Lovett in the middle, Kier on the other side. I think that's a handful for these guys. I know they've gotten better with their center getting back, and that's the QB of the O-line, but it's going to be a good matchup, and I could be getting too excited here, kind of fooling myself, but I think this is a spot where we can really jump on Miami and take away what they like to do because, I mean, to take it to the other point Matthew brought up, like they like to throw those bombs. They like to throw it to Rambo, especially, is the one that I know is more of like a household name. If we don't let those guys have time to get downfield, then I think I like our chances like in that matchup. And
Which
I
is a
mean,
lot how I look at it as the
Yeah.
UNC game.
Yeah.
I know I mentioned that when we
Make
were
'em
playing
run.
Clemson. When we were playing at Clemson, I think I had mentioned that. But Clemson's a little bit different animal. They'll check it down to Shipley, and Shipley can do his work and everything like that. But I don't necessarily know if Miami's the same way as Clemson. Miami's more of a UNC, get the ball downfield, push the ball downfield, and that's what they want to do. And we were very successful with that when we played UNC at UNC. Against their offensive line. Their offensive line wasn't great. And they're okay. They're good guys. They're young. That's something that's coming into effect here too in this game that I'm seeing as well, is that we have a very experienced defensive line. They all might not have been here last year, but they all have made an impact, whether that's Keir Thomas, Jermaine Johnson, Coop, Lovett, any of those guys in the middle. Malcolm Ray has kind of made a little bit of a name for himself there in the middle too on the defensive line. So I see that being a big plus in Florida State's favor, but I'll get into that later because I think our biggest questions come into play in the second half of the field
Why
on our
the fuck
defense.
is Jerry and Jones still starting?
Yeah,
That's
there it is.
Right?
Start it off, Ben. Just start
Is that
it
number
off.
7?
I
Yeah,
wish
that's 7.
I wish I wish they
I
had
marked him
Jones.
down.
I would throw every dollar of my rent that he gives up the first touchdown in the game. I don't know why the fuck he sees the field. It pisses me off. First touchdown of the game is going to be, I don't know, they're going to try to get cute, and they're going to put him on Rambo, and Rambo's going to be at the 50, he's going to be at the 30, and it's just going to be bad. Like, I don't know why he plays. They're either coaching it or allowing it, and it pisses me off. I don't care how bad Bernardo Green is. I don't care how bad Amarian Cooper is. Play one of them. Play one of the younger guys, because Jerry and Jones is not good at the sport of football.
Well, look, Jerry and Jones had those 2 notable plays that he gave up last week, and that's what everyone's talking about. If you look at the actual playing time, though, he's definitely giving up some to Marion Cooper, the true freshman, number 37. And I mean, dudes, FSU's still only giving up 235 passing yards per game. It's not great, but I mean, those aren't some of the worst numbers in the country. And a lot of that is because I think while Jones is bad, I still think like
yards
Brownlee
ratio is out of control because most of the touchdowns that come against us are through the air.
Yeah, well,
they're not on the ground.
I would rather McKenzie Milton play DB than Jerry and Jones. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're like top heavy at DB. I think Brownlee and Knowles, Jamie Robinson, guys like that are really good. Even a Marion Cooper stepping up, but then I just feel like there's a big drop off, which is where you go and find Jerry and Jones and Travis J and some of those other guys who have been huge disappointments.
I mean, shit, put Miko Dotson out there instead of Jerry and Jones. They're both bad, but it's like, who's the tallest midget?
Well, Ben, I mean, that's why we bring up the point, Ben, of like why we feel like FSU just needs to get after them in the pass rush to kind of just take that factor out. Because I mean, Miami's gonna try to throw it deep, but that always takes time. So
how many?
I mean, there's
Matthew.
it's honestly it's a lot.
Matthew had said he already circled number 7 on our team, which is obviously
and
Jerry
I mean,
Jones.
it's
Jones.
like if he's out there, he's gonna give something up.
Is there anybody else out there? I mean, just tell us what you think about Jerry and Jones and what you've seen from that. And then is there anybody else you guys are specifically looking to target?
So Jerry and Jones, obviously, he doesn't look like a corner to me. I mean, just
he's not
a great hips, doesn't have good feet. I mean, he just that was pretty bad against NC State with the separation down. Really not like it was just a post. It was a post. I mean, it was nothing special, but he got cooked pretty bad. The other guy in the secondary that I have circled is someone I'm familiar with in the recruiting side of things was Akeem Dent. I mean, he's up there with some of the best 5-star busts. Would you guys say? I mean, that's
yeah.
Is he a much more?
He's Matthew. He has been getting better this year. They moved him to safety at one point, away from corner, and I think that helped him. I feel like it was more natural. I mean, he's not huge, but I feel like that was a good spot for him.
For corners.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, the lack of speed is pretty bad. And I saw the one play against he gave up a touchdown. I mean, he was like, I don't know how Like, not even did he just miss a tackle. I don't think he touched whoever the NC State player was. He actually got himself in good position and then just completely whiffed.
How I see it is that you have probably a better chance of, I don't know how long you've been watching, Florida State at all, Matthew, but I don't know if you remember Ermon Lane. I mean, you should. You've been tapped into recruiting for a little bit, but Ermon Lane was a 5-star athlete, I guess, and then we started him at safety and absolutely sucked. And then we moved up to wide receiver, and he was maybe just a little bit better. That's kind of what I see from Akeem Dent. Like, if you ever go watch a Mern Lane highlights, it's going to be all him as a wide receiver, and he's not even that great. But he started out with us as a safety. So, like, that's how I see Akeem Dent being.
I mean, the only thing I'll say about Dent, and really this is something I see as an issue with your entire secondary, especially at least in this matchup, is I think there's a pretty big speed advantage for Miami. With Rambo and Keyshawn Smith on the outside and even Mike Harley in the slot, Jalen Knight, who they use in the passing game a lot. I think that there's just a pretty big speed advantage there. Brownlee is your best corner. He got burnt deep last year against Miami. And Dent, I know, isn't the fastest guy. Like, I think that, it all comes back again to
Kevin
the
Knowles might be our fastest DB.
Yeah, I was going to say Kevin Knowles. He's a true freshman. He's out there balling. Him and Brownlee are probably our two best. Well, not probably. Yeah. They are our two best.
They definitely are.
So go ahead.
All right. Well, this is a visual representation. I'm gonna share my screen and show this tweet. This is a visual representation of what it's gonna look like on Saturday and how Miami's offensive staff is gonna feel. So let's see. Share screen. It's one of the best tweets I've seen in a long time. Tyler Van Dyke when he sees 7 trailing Rambo on a go route.
The smile.
Could we have like a Rhett Lashley pulling a Len Kiffin throwing the clipboard in the air? Is it one of those types of situations?
Yeah, at least for our defensive coordinators, it will be. I don't know why he's not.
That's a different story for another day. But you guys definitely have the ability to take us deep. I think that's been the story all year long for Florida State secondary and defense as a whole, is the ability to take us deep. It started with Notre Dame, it moved over to Jacksonville State, and then what was it, the Wake Forest game after that, where the first play of the game, second play of the game maybe just was like an 80-yard bomb for a touchdown. So it's been proven that that's the way that you can attack Florida State on the defensive side of the ball when you're on the opposing team, when you're on offense. So that's where you want to attack, and that's probably your best method. I don't know if our linebackers are all that great, but they do their jobs. I think Chris Marv's a good coach. He's got those guys doing what they're supposed to do, but they're not necessarily making plays unless, it just so happens to fall into their hands, like we saw with Amari Gaynor against Clemson. Amari Gaynor didn't make very many plays other than 3, where he had the first one off the bat, and then he had the recovery of the fumble, and that was it. So the linebackers do their job, so that's, a bonus of where we have been at. But where you guys are going to burn us is deep, and that is definitely a worry, especially you talking about that speed.
Well, I think it all, comes back to the defensive line again, which is one more point I wanted to make. With the way that the O-line has played the past few games, he's had a very clean pocket, and he really hasn't had to show the ability to really maneuver murky waters in the pocket. He had a few plays against Pittsburgh where he got out of the pocket and ran for some first downs, but really I saw the NC State quarterback, whatever his name is, sometimes when Jermaine Johnson would get around the edge, he'd climb up and he'd, slide left or right. He looked good, work in the pocket a little bit. I don't know, we haven't seen – Tyler hasn't had to do that, so it'll be interesting because there will be times when Jermaine Johnson gets around the edge. Is Tyler going to have the ability, is he going to step up? If he's going to scoot right? He hasn't had to show that yet, so I think that would be a point to watch.
Yeah, and you know what, that could even be – and you pointed it out with the play by Devin Leary. Kier is awesome on our defensive end. Jermaine, he's going to be a first or second round pick on the other side, and we bring the pressure up the middle. But the one place where you could take advantage of us, and if you had King, you would burn us on this all freaking day, is that the worst habit our defensive ends have is just going balls to the wall and ending up 7 yards behind the quarterback. and then figuring out, oh shit, I took myself out of a play. So that's something to look out for, but I'm not really worried about Van Dyke moving. So,
And I'm just curious, because it is new, for you, Matthew, and all probably Canes fans, is Van
Oh, he freeze it. Did I freeze?
was needed.
no, Skinner, you
But
froze up there.
oh, sorry. So Van Dyke kind of popped up middle of the season. Not a lot of people know about him, knows what he can bring. They've seen a few or more games than, up to this point. And how confident are you, but also Canes fans, in him going up to Tallahassee, which I think this will probably be one of the bigger, showouts for Florida State fans as a whole compared to our last 3 or so home games. And how confident are you in him or other Canes fans that you're hearing about in him coming into, Tallahassee? It is not a night game, but it is a 3:30 game. So, you'll play into the night because it's daylight savings time and all that. But it's going to be a very ruthless environment. All players are going to come out to play because it's Miami, Florida State. It's that rivalry game. So what are we looking at, and how much confidence do you guys have in Van Dyke being able to come up there? Because like if it were me and I'm having a brand new guy coming in to a hostile situation and haven't really been able to see necessarily, you've probably seen better teams, but not necessarily the talent that necessarily Florida State does possess and can just tap into at any moment.
Well, I think in terms of like the big game atmosphere is I think what you're trying to talk about there. Like Van Dyke went up to Pittsburgh and he went to North Carolina. Obviously, that was not anywhere near the environment that Doak is when Miami comes to town. Like that's always going to be a huge game. But like he has played under pressure, outside pressure. Like he put pressure on himself. I don't know if you guys saw this. I know Christian did, but YouTube before the NC State game, he went out and made comments. He's like, "Oh, I don't think they can stop us." And this is when we're riding a 2-game losing streak, and he had two.
And he was not playing very well at all. Like he was not playing well.
He hadn't played poorly in the second half of those games, but he had started off really slow in his 2 previous starts. But he went out and he said that, and NC State, their players talked all week leading up to the game, and then before the game in warmups, there was not a full-scale scuffle, but, there was some talk because Miami warms up right in front of where the visiting team has to go into the locker room, and they were talking to him, and they were saying stuff. And, that's pressure he put on himself, and he was able to handle that. Obviously, pressure from the crowd is a little different, but I think there's no way to know until we get there. And not just Van Dyke. Like, we're playing with so many first- and second-year guys in big-time roles, like, who knows how they react. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. The war chant won't affect them. They've been playing it since week 1.
Yeah, they've been playing it since the Bama game.
Maybe that was the plan. Who knows?
Hey, it's probably the biggest game on both of our schedules at this point. Up to this point in the year. Pittsburgh game was big for you guys. So I'm just very intrigued. I think it's going to be. I wore my throwback old school logo windbreaker today because I think it's going to be. I think it's all going to be. I think it's going to be an old school game. I think it's going to be ugly. I think it's going to be a lot of chippiness. And it's probably more than we've seen in a Miami Florida State game in maybe almost 10 years.
To top it off,
I think it might be the best Florida State Miami game that we have seen in almost 10 years, just based off of both of our win streaks. Not a whole lot on the line, whether it's one team or the other. Although there's so much on the line, right? I get it. It's Miami, Florida State, but there's always been one team that's kind of been out of it or not really had enough, and it's kind of been overpowering one side or the other. But right now, I think we're not necessarily evenly matched. I think there might be a slight head nod there to Miami, but I think the way that these two teams mesh, from our offensive standpoint to their defensive standpoint, is our offense has the upper hand on their defense because we like to run the ball. We like to do all that, which is something that Miami's not necessarily great at. And then for Miami, they're great at pushing the ball downfield, which is something that we're not good at. So that's something I look at, and I think it's just going to be a battle. I think it's just going to be an absolute battle, and I'm very excited to see how it turns out.
Why'd you say the games are never good? Aside from 2013 and last year, they've all been one possession.
I'm not saying they're never good, but
It came
they're
down
like
to a 21-point comeback, touchdown with 1 second left on the clock, a block PAT. They've all been really good games.
What I'm trying to say is like the aggressiveness, the anger towards each other, like hard, like hard hitting, like that type of shit is going to go on in this game because we're fighting. We're fighting.
All right. You guys are getting off the freaking rails right now.
All right, going to be a fight, dude. That's what I see.
There's probably going to be a fight. There usually is. All right, so
I want to.
I'm tired of us picking Miami. I'm tired of picking Miami players off the ground. Like, what are you doing? Don't touch them.
All right,
let
so
them sit there.
Kick them in the neck.
Let's get score predictions. We did our offensive and defensive previews. Let's save our guest until last. How about you first, Ben?
41-27 Miami.
Holy crap! All right,
I'm done being positive. Whenever I'm positive, it always turns out wrong.
Fair. Okay, he's reverse jinxing us. All right,
yeah.
Skinner.
I think it's gonna be a close game. I don't know. I'm going back and forth here because there's so many different things that can go in either side's direction, and that's tough for me. It's hard to really put a win on anybody, but I'll stick with my Noles at home. I'll be the homer, and I'm gonna go with 27-24 Noles.
Okay, that's interesting. I'm in a similar boat to you, except much higher scoring. I think Miami's got the better roster. I think FSU has the far better coaching staff. I like Florida State 45, Miami 42. And then we'll throw it to Matthew.
Damn, that would be fun as shit, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I think the way Miami's offense is playing and the advantage they have at the skilled positions, especially right on the offense, is too much. I say 37-27 Miami.
All right. Yeah, I think those are all reasonable. It could go any which way. You never know.
I think those are all like obvious. Those are all not obvious outcomes, but like very likely outcomes. Like all those could probably happen.
Yeah. Okay. So last thing we want to jump into with Matthew while he's here is his bread and butter, like he told us about before we started our game preview. I want to ask you, Matthew, about a few guys that both FSU and Miami are recruiting right now. This game in general is a pretty big visit weekend for FSU. We've got a lot of 5-stars on campus. They're committed to us. We've got the number 1 player in the country on campus this weekend. As far as guys that are of interest to both Miami and Florida State, though, let's go ahead and start with Wesley Basanf. He's going to be at the game. This guy obviously has been thought for a while to be a longtime Miami lean. There were some cracks in that armor when he came up to Tallahassee and threw down the U. And since then, Florida State had a little momentum. And since then, it seems like it's kind of trended away from both FSU and Miami with their crappy seasons. Do you agree with that, Matthew? Where do you think this one's at?
It looked like for a little bit that, Florida was in prime position to take control here because they started pushing hard, and early in the season they were the team with the most momentum on the field. But with the way they've fallen off, I do think it's back to a Miami and Florida State battle. I think that there is an out-of-state team to watch for, though, in West Virginia. I think there is someone close to him who wants him at West Virginia, but I do think it will end up being Miami or Florida State. And he's been in Miami a lot. I think he's gone to 4 Miami games this year. He was just hanging out on campus last weekend, and he's someone who I think I'd give a slight edge to Miami right now, but I do think this game could have an impact. He will decide Thanksgiving weekend because he's an early enrollee, so he wants to get it done. He's not someone who's going to push a decision back. So he will decide before any potential coaching changes at Miami. So right now, I think I'd give a slight edge to Miami right there. But I do think it's a Miami-Florida State battle.
Yeah, honestly, I'd give a slight edge, if anyone, really, to West Virginia, I think. But if we're talking about between us and he ends up in state, which is probably most likely, I think it's a toss-up right now. I feel like he's was, and I'm not too insightful on this. I haven't spoken to him. I think you have, Matthew,
Mm-hmm.
but it almost feels like he was rubbed the wrong way by how Miami acted entitled about him and acted like he was a commitment this whole time, at least in the early season and in the summer. So we'll see. I feel like agree with you that this game holds a big sway in where he's going to land. And I think if it's not 50-50 right now, it's close to that.
And the big thing is like this will most likely, unless he just decides to hop in for the Virginia Tech game next weekend when they come to Miami, this would probably be his last visit anywhere before he makes a decision Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And this is a unofficial, by the way, because he did official to us.
He's taken all of his officials already.
Yeah, so this one's unofficial. The next dude I wanted to bring up was formerly committed to FSU, ended up decommitting last spring. At that point in time, Miami fans, including Matthew, were really celebrating because they thought it was an immediately, he was going to flip to Miami. That didn't turn out to be the case, and now I don't think he ends up at either of these schools. But Nigel Kelly is going to be visiting for this game. So what do you think about him, Matthew?
Yeah, Miami, they had put themselves in a really good spot in the spring. And then really, they were in a good spot up until the start of the season, and then they started to slip. I think they've fallen down a whole lot here. I think their only hope is that he is very close to his mom, and she's very involved in the recruitment. If she says, hey, I want you close to home and want you to stay here, that would have an impact on him, but I don't think that she's going to make that decision for him. The two schools I would watch for here are honestly two out-of-state schools. One where he was at last weekend, or 2 weekends ago maybe, which is Oregon. And then Georgia. I think he's still planning on taking an unofficial and an official there before he makes a decision. And the way that they're recruiting, they're basically, drafting guys, not even recruiting guys right now. So there it might just be, does he have a spot at Georgia? But if we're looking at Miami and Florida State, I think Florida State's in a better spot than Miami, but I don't think either of them would be the pick right now.
Yeah, I agree that out of all the in-state schools, we're probably in the best spot. You mentioned he's from South Florida. His mom did go to FAMU, and they're like Tallahassee people, so it's just something to watch. Moving on there, dude, I want to ask you about a recruitment that I don't know what the heck is going on here because there's just not a lot written or said about it. This guy visited Alabama last weekend, and he's going to be in Tallahassee now. It's Julian Armella, who's the offensive tackle from me and you's alma mater, Matthew St. Thomas. I know you have some strong thoughts on this player, so let it rip.
Armella, one of the most controversial recruits ever. I think is he still rated as like a top 5 player on Rivals? I think so.
I think he's like top 5 player in the country.
Yeah, not even at the position, just in the country.
Yeah.
Which is pretty crazy. My take here is I think that if Bama was willing to take him, he probably would have jumped on board. I don't think nearly as high of him as a prospect as Rivals does. I'm not on the rankings committee, obviously. And, I think something that I think, some people have hinted at this, I've talked to, he might not be an early signing day guy. He's at St. Thomas, like you mentioned. They cannot enroll early. He's someone who could wait till February, and then you have coaching carousel stuff going on. That is someone who I think the only way Miami would get back in is theoretically if Cristobal were to come here with his O-line prestige. But I think the team to watch for is who does LSU get as a head coach if he does wait for the traditional sign day, because that was his favorite school for a long time. And then with all the Orgeron stuff, they started to trend down, and now they don't even have a coach right now. I think if LSU, depending on who they bring in, I think that they could, end up coming back in this recruitment. But right now, if we're looking at Miami and Florida State, I think this is a Florida State edge.
I think if he had to sign today, it's easily a pick to FSU. I really see the only competition, meaning competition who wants him, so not Alabama, as being LSU, and his main connection there was Ed O. So they could hire someone who knocks it out of the park, but right now I like us. So not to belabor recruiting too long, there's only a couple more I want to touch on. A guy who was committed to LSU, who I'm not sure if he's opened it back up or if he's preparing to open it back up, is Demario Tolan. Now, we originally thought he was going to be at this game, and we thought we were in a good spot for him because of a 247 article a few weeks ago where he said we were in the best spot for him other than LSU. He ends up canceling our trip and now is going to be showing up in Tennessee. I only bring this up to you, Matthew, because I know before he committed to LSU that Miami was involved there.
Yeah, Miami was involved, and they never stopped recruiting him even when he committed. He's already been down to Miami twice since Orgeron was fired, because I do still think he's technically committed, but obviously this many visits. What does that commitment really mean? But since Orgeron was fired, he has visited Miami twice, and they finished probably second when he made his commitment over the summer, and they stayed in contact with him. I do think that this is someone that Miami has a chance with, but, I mean, he's already turned him down for the SEC once. Wouldn't surprise me if he did it again. He's another guy who I think is trying to set up an official visit to Georgia, but, like I said, with the level they're recruiting, they might not even bring him on an official. And this is
he's gaining a lot of traction now. I don't know. I just feel like it's the first time I've heard about it, or maybe that's the case, but I just feel like he's gaining a lot of traction now. He's gaining a lot of attention from a lot of teams trying to get him there for an official visit, trying to get him there for whatever reason. And I just think it's a big impact for the Noles specifically that he is not coming to the Florida State Miami game and instead going to the Tennessee game, because we thought originally that we were going to have a lot of traction. Maybe 2 weeks ago, we had a lot of traction with him. He was going to be here this weekend, and it was pretty set and solid in stone. And that's not the case anymore. He's going up to Tennessee for a game against I don't even know who Tennessee plays this weekend. They play it's a ranked team. Let me look it up real quick. They're playing Georgia. That's probably why they're playing Tennessee's at home. They're there in Neyland and they're facing Georgia, and Tennessee's hit a nice hot streak now, and that might be the case, but it also might be the case for Georgia too. They get him sneak in and then whatever. But I mean, that's going to be a great atmosphere. It probably is going to be a lot bigger atmosphere than Florida State Miami. And that's not very often that you say that, but Miami's not where Miami is supposed to be, and Florida State's not where Florida State's supposed to be. So that's something that I can see very clearly on why you would take that visit to Tennessee, because that atmosphere is probably going to be unbelievable. Considering Tennessee's on that hot streak and Georgia's number one ranked in the country.
Yeah. So,
but it's worrisome. It's worrisome. So don't get me wrong. Like, it's worrisome for Florida State fans because we thought we had a lot of traction with them.
So another guy who's visiting, who still committed to FSU, but I'm pretty sure, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Matthew, that Miami has continued to recruit since he committed to the Noles. And excuse me, I misspoke. He's not visiting for this game. It's Daniel Lyons.
Yeah, he's not visiting. He hasn't, to my knowledge, unless he's, pulling some secret visits. I don't think he's visited anywhere this season for any game.
Yeah, so the report was that they wanted to get him here for this game, but the next visit is going to be an unofficial in December, right before the signing period. So that's the last we heard. Obviously, with recruiting, those things are subject to change. But I'm curious your take from the Miami side if they're still active with this guy.
They certainly were over the summer, like a week maybe the week that following his commitment to Florida State. He and his teammate Dante Anderson showed up at Miami's pool party. I know that over at Rivals, the guy spoke to someone really close to him after that visit to say, hey, is this a real thing? Is Miami still in it? All that stuff. And they're like, look, Daniel's a guy. He's not like a spur of the moment guy. Like, if he made a decision to commit, he talked it over. He thought it through. And he's a loyal guy. So over the summer, the word was no, like, if he's committed, if he's making that decision, like, he's thought about it and he's sticking with it.
Yeah,
but Miami has not used their official there. I think is like the only guy on this list, except for Armella, who they're out of it with, that they haven't used their official with. So if they were to get back in it, they would still have that in their arsenal.
Yeah, on that note, I mean, when Lyons committed, he came up to FSU and did it in Norvell's office. And I've never seen a recruit come up with 2 minivans full of family. Like anyone show up to Tallahassee with more family members than he did. So it's kind of like when he stepped out of the car and those pictures came out, people figured he was going to commit. I have 2 more I want to ask about, Matthew. One was actually not on the list we gave you beforehand, but he's going to be at the game. I don't think Miami's really involved here, but I do want to ask you about it because this is, I think, the most wanted uncommitted player on FSU's board by far. And you do work for Rivals. You've talked to this guy and you've talked to other kids before. So what's going on with Marvin Jones Jr.?
Well, he's not going to Miami.
Yeah,
So
I'm asking you about it, just from having spoken to him and
yeah,
your feeling on following high school down there.
So the last time I spoke to him was over the summer at Miami's Paradise Camp. At that point, he was still he was there obviously, so he was still giving Miami somewhat of a look. But I got a Bama vibe from him. He was teammates with Dallas Turner before,
and he was just at Bama.
Yeah,
and I think the tweet that he sent out was "Bama feels like home."
Yeah.
Which is
wasn't that? Is that not the same exact or very similar tweet to what was Quayshawn Fuller did something like that, and that was an FSU Alabama battle. Like he was,
Wait,
he visited.
Your Wi-Fi broke up there. Who'd you mention?
That sounds a whole lot like Quayshawn Fuller when he was being recruited by Alabama and Florida State. He put out some tweet like that. And then commits to Florida State.
The difference is Marvin Jones Jr. can go to Alabama, and I don't think Quayshawn could have.
Yeah, we're here, and then we're here. That's
Marvin Jones, I think. I mean, if you look at On3 for what that's worth, he's the number 1 player in the country. I think he's easily the top guy on our board, and that's uncommitted, and it's not close. So that's good to hear. Well, it's actually not good to hear.
Let me just say something, because actually, I can give my take on it, even though this is not something Miami's going after, so it's not something I try to get scoop on a whole lot. But I do know that for those who don't know, he's at American Heritage Plantation. His head coach there is Patrick Surtain. His son, Patrick Surtain Jr., played cornerback at Alabama. Now, his very good friend is Earl Little, who's being recruited by Florida State and Alabama. So there could be, it's always more hypothetical than in reality that these guys that say they're a package deal stick together. And I haven't even heard them use those words, but I think that could give Florida State a shot to say, hey, we can both.
I think another thing that Florida State has is, the legacy thing.
That too, of course.
That obviously helps, but also a lot of these kids nowadays, because they're kids, nowadays are looking to make a new name for themselves. I mean, the most recent guy that I can say, did that is Asante Samuel Jr., just, off the top of my mind. A guy who wanted to make a name for himself and did and has done it. And so for Marvin Jones Jr., I see it hard for us to pull him, but I do think it's probably between us and Bama overall, because you've got your dad, what Mike Norvell's building, because Mike Norvell is building. It's not something that's sinking into the sand or just, his looks from the outside. He's got good guys coming in, and, even after the seasons that we've had, but there's build, there's climb, forbid I see it. Or say that word, climb, but that's what's happening. Florida State's trying to climb back up the ladder, so it's probably going to be a tough decision for him. But ultimately, I see him probably going to Alabama because he's going to be an Alabama player because he is that type of level and that type of talent.
Yeah, from my perspective, I still think it's a wide open 4, maybe even 5-team race for him. It doesn't seem like he's in a rush. I mean, I don't know if he's early signing or late signing. I actually don't know.
He can't enroll early, so
yeah,
he could, but
I feel like Oklahoma, Alabama, Florida State, Georgia, and maybe even Ohio State are still all super even, neck and neck. So it's going to be interesting, dude. I mean, I feel like that one's really going to come down to the wire. And Matthew, you mentioned Earl Little. That's exciting for me because I feel like FSU is solid number 2 spot there behind Alabama, and it's kind of Alabama, us, and then a big drop off for him. And I mean, he might just wait long enough that Alabama can't get in him, can't get him in. So We'll
Yeah,
see.
that's another guy at Heritage who cannot enroll early. So, he could sign early, but he doesn't have to. He just me and you, Christian, we talked about this and we had a disagreement. I don't think that he's a take at Alabama right now. I also don't think that he is an outside corner. I think, what do you guys call it? What was that position? Not
Well,
starting.
on the line, it's with Fox, and then
Fox.
behind him is with Buck. Yeah.
The Buck, I guess, because he kind of plays a similar position like that at Heritage. He doesn't play on the outside. He's a nickel corner who will sometimes drop back to safety, sometimes come in the box.
He would play where Kevin Knowles plays.
Yeah, very similar.
Yeah. Okay, last one before we wrap this all up. It's actually a 2023 prospect from Dade County. Going to be at this game, 5-star wide receiver Jalen Brown. I don't know too much here, Matthew. I know this is the second or third time he's visited Florida State now. What's going on with this recruitment?
Yeah, Jalen Brown, I think on the composite, he's the number 2 wide receiver in the country in next year's class. The top 2 actually are both from South Florida. The number 1's already committed to Oklahoma in that crazy 2023 class they're building. But Jalen Brown, he goes to Gulliver, which for those of you who aren't familiar with the Miami area, is about 3/4 of a mile from Miami's campus. So he's there all the time. He'll drop in and just hang out. And then he's been to a few games this year. He was there in June when the period was open. He was there every week. So he plenty of time at Miami. He's been to Florida State a few times too. And there's an out-of-state school that has made an impact on him early, and that's Notre Dame actually. And they already have another South Florida guy on the roster right now, and Kevin Austin, who's another receiver. So they've shown.
And don't they have Jalen Brown's running back committed as well?
No, that Michigan State does.
Okay, is that not the player who was in the viral clip dancing in the talk with FSU?
Yeah, that was the FSU uniform.
He's committed to Michigan State.
Yes, I think his dad is Cedric Irvin Sr. Legacy.
Okay.
There.
And Matthew, so you mentioned Jalen Brown is how far from the Miami campus?
Less than a mile.
Less than a mile. Okay. And
and I don't.
When you said he goes up to Matthew, when you said he goes up to those Miami games, how far is that for him?
It's a drive.
That's a drive. Okay, just checking.
Gotta get in his car.
Okay, so what year is Kevin Coleman? 23.
Kevin Coleman is coming out this year.
He's this year.
22.
So
yeah.
I mean, if we snag Kevin Coleman, there's not really any need for us to go after more than maybe one wide receiver in the next.
No, you're not going to turn down guys like this. You can't turn down.
I mean, you're not. I mean, you probably aren't. You probably aren't.
We need to be taking.
Okay, sorry. You probably aren't. You probably aren't. But we're not going to sit here and say that we don't have talent at that position, because we do. We have tons of talent at that position.
Where?
I think it's the least talented position.
Aside from McLean, where?
I don't see it.
Aside from McLean, who do we have?
I think wide receivers by far are.
I think there's a lot of potential.
I want to take.
I'm just very optimistic in the potential that we do have in that room, and then you have to look at elsewhere as well. You got to look outside in the transfer portal. There's tons of guys that are going to be able to produce. Look at the guy who's leaving Texas now. There's so many different possibilities that you could have fill in for certain roles. Not saying that we don't go after this guy. Absolutely fucking go after this guy. But it's not a huge deal if it's a letdown.
Yeah, that's all I got for recruiting. That's all I think we've got for Miami preview.
Well, let me say one more thing on Jalen Brown, and almost a bigger picture thing. And I want to get you guys' opinion on this. We talked earlier about Florida State, they want to run the ball. They're not a drop back and pass team. Miami, they're pushing the ball down the field. That recruits look at stuff like that. Jalen Brown's looking hey, I can play with, Van Dyke and a quarterback of that caliber, where I think that, Jordan Travis still has, he's not leaving after this year. Duffy, I've seen in person. I know he's a 4-star on the rating, but he wasn't super impressive to me. Receivers especially, they look at the quarterbacks that they have, and I think that makes an impact in where they
are. I'll tell you this, dude.
Ben, tell them about the wide receivers, bro. Or tell them about the quarterbacks, bro. Ben, tell them about the quarterback plan that we got going.
What quarterback plan? Oh, yeah, the plan. Well, it doesn't really work anymore because Gabriel and Brennan would have to play next year. So it takes JT out of next year's equation. But I say we kick Duffy to the curb, go get a young, talented guy out of the portal. Jordan Travis starts for 2 years, play that portal guy 1 year, and then Chris Parsons comes in
Dude,
after
portal guys don't transfer to ride the bench.
Well,
Not what
okay.
they're doing.
Well, I'd rather Jordan, unless it's fucking Miles Brennan or Dylan Gabriel. I don't want a portal guy, and I also don't want Duffy.
Well, Matthew, to answer your point, dude, I know that what Mike Norvell does when he's recruiting receivers right now is he's showing them Memphis, and he's showing them what he has now and why he cannot run his Memphis stuff, which is his, his stuff that made him what he is and got him a Florida State job. And I know he's telling them, I need you and I want you so that we can get back to this. I mean, they tried. It's the reason Blackman started last year is they didn't want to have to go to this wing T, that we're running now. So I know for a fact Norvell's recruiting them, showing them the Memphis stuff, showing them that there's early playing time. And I mean, you've got to kind of go off Duffy and you've got to show them Travis's improvement as a passer. But I mean, it definitely hurts to not have a
But to go against that, Christian, to go against that, Mark Norvell has been shown, and any coaches that he's had along with him, that he can play call and create plays for whoever his quarterback is and adjust to who his quarterback is and be somewhat successful at it. Yeah, has it not been producing the results that we would like? Absolutely.
Correct.
But
it's not the reason McKenzie Milton can't hit a 5-yard slant route.
But it's been working.
It's been working.
That's what it is.
But we don't have what Matthew's point was that receivers want to see a good passing offense, and we don't have that right now. So, I mean, that aspect, the offense has been efficient in some spots. But if we're talking about Jaylen Brown, and especially a kid who's still young, who's still a junior, I mean, once they're starting to pick who they're going to form relationships with and who's going to go deep in their recruitment, they're looking at what you run and looking at the basics of you first, So I'm just bringing up to Matthew what Mike Norvell does and how we're recruiting him.
Did you see the first play, Caleb, of the game that we ran offensively? You probably didn't.
I mean, at this point now, we're not a strong enough team on the line to be able to do that. So you got to recruit guys that are going to be able to get outside the pocket and be able to create their own offense, because we don't have that strength. Once we get that strength in there on the offensive line to be able to sit back and throw the ball, then that's completely fine. But the fact is that's not the case. We don't have that yet. We have guys that are solid, they're solid, but they're not able to give them that amount of time to be able to step back and pass, like a White was 2 years ago for Memphis. They're not able to do that right now, and it's not going to be for another probably 2 to 3 years before that's even a capability. Hence why we're going after guys like Chris Parsons. AJ Duffy can even scramble out of the pocket, but he's more of a pocket passer, but he can get outside if he needs to. But if you bring in a transfer, aka a guy like a Gabriel or something like that, he can do that. So
is that someone you guys expect
that happens
to enter the portal? You think Dylan Gabriel's going to the portal?
He's already said he wanted to, but he hasn't made his name known into it yet. So it's.
Can we talk about Duffy for a second?
Have you seen him play?
I saw Duffy play first game of the year.
Is he good? I don't like him. I think he's kind of mid.
I mean, it was not an impressive performance. It was IMG versus Heritage. He had some guys open. Really, I think he had one impressive pass, and I think it was to whatever that 2023 wide receiver they have that's getting a lot of traction right now. He had Skinner open a few times, missed him. He had that other receiver open a few times, missed him. The only real positive I saw, because it really wasn't a great game, was he was more athletic than I thought. He had a few good scrambles, pick up yards against an athletic defense that Heritage has with all those guys we were talking about earlier. But dropping back to the passer, I wasn't very impressed.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't like how.
You gotta take it for what it's worth from IMG.
Had an injury, and that's why he's not playing. All right.
I mean, if you're IMG, you have a talent advantage around you. You should be able to perform.
Right. And that's the whole thing when it comes to IMG quarterbacks. I don't ever trust an IMG quarterback for that reason, because your players outside of you probably make you a better quarterback than you actually are. I mean,
I
their
Is
run
it
game.
almost like
you do.
They run.
is it almost
They,
like similar, like looking at-
IMG this whole year has done nothing but run the ball.
which has always been
They
their
run
can't
the
bread,
throw.
ball down their opponent's throats.
which is
Because
just
they
what they
can't
can
throw.
do because they have that ridiculous offensive line with 4 and 5 stars. Do you think it's almost like Alabama quarterbacks going into the NFL, like the same thing, where it's like, oh, we have such a talent advantage, like, you know, Tua's out here throwing to 4 first-round receivers, and he gets on the Dolphins, and he's, you know, can't throw the ball more than 5
No
yards.
line, no wide receivers. Looks like shit.
I'm
yeah.
not saying Duffy's awful. Like, I'm not saying he's awful, but I'm saying whatever IMG's doing with him is probably not fit exactly what he is best at. You know, like they're running
gonna
to
come
win
in
the
and be an
game. They're
immediate
doing
impact,
they're doing whatever they need to do to smoke the team, which they do pretty much every fucking week. And it's not on Duffy because everybody around him's so much better than probably he is. Not saying he's not good, but he is not probably at the level that these guys are. And that's something that worries me about Duffy.
He's not going to come in and be an immediate impact guy. That's for sure.
Yes.
I
I
think
think
he gets
he's
passed
going to
up by
be he'll be a Chuba guy, and then if he's not willing to wait like Chuba was, then he'll be gone.
Let me. What happened with Chuba? Why Chuba dip?
Because he's a little bitch and didn't want to put in the work.
He
He didn't handle his injury right. The staff asked him to come for summer, didn't learn it. Then he didn't come for summer, didn't learn it. And then he doesn't know the offense. Now he's bitching about playing time. Like, go fucking cry some more and be a bust somewhere else. You're not going pro. You weren't starting over Jordan Travis next year. You weren't starting over Duffy. You weren't starting over Parsons. We don't need you. Like, bye. And then they got people in, like, meltdown mode on Twitter. I'm like, that was Mike's handpicked guy. If he was ready, he would be starting over fucking Peg Leg Pete, but he wasn't. He had 5 passes.
I think the biggest thing to take away from what Ben just said is that he just totally handled every situation wrongly. And whether if that's on the parents or on whoever, that is who it's going to be on. But like
Mom's kind of
delaying your return to getting the proper treatment that you need to be able to return to the thing is a huge thing. And that's on him and whoever else is involved. And then demanding that you need playing time when we are still trying to fight for a 6-6 season just to even make a bowl, because we haven't done that in how many years now? 2, 3. And you want to demand playing time? You want to demand playing time when we're what, 3 and 4? That's not going to happen. We still have a fighting chance, and you have nothing. You have nothing to prove for yourself to put yourself in a better position to make the team win and get to those 6 wins than Travis has. So
I
like,
cannot wait to root against him wherever he goes.
You get upset about that, then that's your problem. Like that's a child move, in my opinion.
Let me ask you guys this. So Chuba's gone. I think Milton's gone after this year, right?
Thank God.
For sure.
Maybe
the kid from Valdosta is not that great. Like, do you guys run it back with Travis, or do you go to the portal? What do you guys think you do?
I want Travis.
We'll do both.
God tier.
I think they're going to go to the portal, and then there's going to be a QB competition.
And Travis will probably.
I do think though they're not going to go to the portal until after Duffy puts pen to paper. You're not even going to hear a whisper about it.
That would be a bad decision if they decided to go to the portal before.
You just whispered it, dude. It's out there now.
From the staff. But yeah, I think they're going to bring in someone just for the sake of competition and just to get 4 guys in that room.
In depth. Like, you guys need just bodies.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So we can.
Well, that's why you kind of want to pick up one of these guys that might have like 2 more years left. You know, like they got the COVID year plus they have a medical red shirt. So that would be something that you
no more medical projects. No.
But not I'm not saying a medical red shirt at the level that fucking KZ is. Like,
you should sign another quarterback that was totally going to walk again.
Yeah, not that level, but like a guy who missed the majority of the season because of injury, got that red shirt, and now has 2 years left because of COVID and an injury. And then you have Travis start this year. Travis probably leaves, does whatever Travis needs to do. Bring in that guy to the guy that we had transfer in this year, start the following season, have Duffy or whoever the hell else, probably Chris Parsons, learn after that, and then boom, 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 and then you get a roll going. That's how you get
the kid from like Vero area.
Who
is Chris Parsons? The 2023 kid from the Vero area?
No,
He's the 2023
he's
kid
from
from
Tennessee.
Ravenwood, Tennessee.
Do you guys have a commit from that?
Yeah, he's a
Really close
wide
to him?
receiver. Ventrevious
Oh.
Jacobs.
No quarterback.
Ventrevious, something like that.
No
His last name is
quarterbacks?
Jacobs. No, well,
I'm just
not
telling
from
you
not from Vero.
that makes the most sense to me of what you should
Caleb,
do.
we should be on staff. We should be on staff.
Just saying.
I can
No,
coach you better defensive
Matthew,
forward.
the quarterback's from Tennessee.
I can
Okay.
coach
He's
you
like
wide receivers better than Dugans. I would
He's
just
like
say,
the
fuck
next
it,
to
get
Sean
open.
Watson.
It's a perfect now. Fucking get open.
Oh Lord, boys.
All right, boys.
Fucking
I
get
do
a
have
man, you know,
to
we're
step
playing-
out here.
it'd be
We're
great.
approaching 2 hours.
All right, Christian, go ahead and end us off, baby. You got it.
All right, yeah. So, last words for me is fuck Miami. Let's go this weekend. I'll see you on Friday, Matthew. Use down. All right, later, everyone.
Last word for me is the most important game of the week is on Sunday.
Fuck the Gators.
Florida.
Fuck the Gators.
Hey, go Noles either way. Just want to give you a huge shout out, Matthew, for coming on here and putting up with all of our bullshit. It's fun. You know, it was a great time talking to you, getting that insight into, you know, what we're going to be looking at from Miami this weekend, but also on the recruiting trail. So keep crushing it over there in Rivals, and, you know, we'd love to have you on, you know, sometime in the future as well.
Of course. Appreciate it. Go Canes.
Yes, sir. Put those U's down, boys. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Tribaholics.